One of our Patreon members asked a really interesting question. He wrote, "How can I get to a level where I can pick up my guitar and just play with total freedom?" Let's do it. We're going to break this into 4 steps, but first, let's hear a short example of what we're going to learn. Step 1, you should have a chord progression in mind before you start. You could just use a common chord progression from a song that you already know, or you could learn how to create one yourself. Let's do that together right here. It's not that hard. First, you should know that the 3 most common chords in popular music are 1, 4, 5. So if we take the key of D, that would be D, G, A. Why is that? Because if D is 1, then G is 4, and A is 5. It's easy math, really. And those are great chords together, but let's add some minor into that to create more of a mood. So just memorize this. The next most common chord in popular music is a minor chord, and it's the 6th chord. So just memorize. In a major key, we have 1, 4, 5. Those are major chords. And then we have the 6th, and that's a minor chord. Put them in any order and it sounds great. We could play D, G, B minor, A, or G, D, B minor, A, or D, A, B minor, G. It doesn't matter. They're all going to sound good. And then just make sure you got an order memorized in your mind, what you're going to do. We need to have a little bit of planning ahead. So in this case, we're just going to use B minor, and then G, D. That's it. That's a nice little riff, and we're keeping that chord progression in mind before we do step 2, which is connect the chords with riffs. Let's figure out how we can connect these chords with some notes in between them to make it sound a lot more interesting. Where are we going to get the notes from? We're just going to get them from the pentatonic scale. But we have to be able to visualize everything. So let's take this B minor right here. And if I have this B minor, what scale could I use on this chord? Well, I could just use B minor pentatonic easy shape. I might as well. It's a great scale. And since we're combining chords and scale, we don't need a lot. We can just play around the lower area of that scale. How about just those 5 notes? I mean, pentatonic is only 5 notes anyway, right? And we're going to keep it low down, and we're going to picture in our mind where the next chord is. We have to do this in advance. So we know the next chord was a G. Where's just the root of the G? So if I'm here, this is my B minor, this is my B minor pentatonic. There's a G root right there. So I found my G root. Now all I have to do is play a G chord from there. Well, I kind of ended up with my 3rd finger on it, so I'm just going to jump. I'm going to know in advance I'm going to jump and hit that G chord. And in the chord progression that we created, it goes to a D right away. So we don't really have any space there to do a riff. We don't need that many riffs. There's the D. So we could create any small riff out of these 5 notes and then just hit the 2 chords. Let's put it together. We have B minor. It's just improvised. It can be different every time, right? In fact, if it's different every time, that might be kind of cool. It keeps it interesting as well. Keeping those riffs in the lower range of the guitar helps the chords to sound more connected, like we're really walking from one chord to another. Picturing the root of the next chord in advance, and then just hitting it when that chord is supposed to come around. So that's sounding pretty good, but we need some variation. That's kind of the point, right? We want to be able to pick up the guitar and just play with total freedom. That means we need to be able to move around, not keep playing the same thing over and over again. And that brings me to step 3. And one strategy for that is to just play the chords in a different place and connect them. And that means we're going to move this way down the fretboard because we've already explored this area. So let's say I'm on this B minor here. And I'm going to walk down to this G. So how did I know to do that? Again, I'm thinking ahead a little bit. I'm looking for the roots of those chords that I need. I'm thinking I need a G and I need a D. Well, I have a G note right here, and I know what's a G chord from there. In fact, it's just a standard G bar chord there. And then I saw the root D here, and I just played the standard D bar chord there. It wasn't really anything fancy, but just by the fact of moving to a different area of the fretboard to play the same chords, G and D, it sounds far more interesting. And it means we've got to really know our pentatonic shapes because we're going to connect the original chord, this B minor here, down to G here. So how do I know what notes I'm playing here from B minor to G? It's still just B minor pentatonic. That's all I'm using. But I'm picturing this. That would be the bottom of shape 5 minor pentatonic, we could say. But really, it's just like a lower extension, these 4 notes. So commonly used. And I'm visualizing in advance where I'm going to this G root. And then just playing those chords that I need. So B minor. There we go. Let's put them together. We had the higher one first, and then we have the lower one second. Now we're really covering the fretboard. We're doing a lot. We got chords, we got riffs, we got them in different places, pretty much all over the fretboard already. So. Getting a lot more interesting. Now I've got different riffs because the riff's gonna kind of be different every single time I play it. I'm just improvising them, visualizing the pentatonic shape, and thinking ahead about the root and the chord that I want to go to. I could make it more complicated by playing triads rather than those standard bar chords. So for that G and D, what if I went here? G, D. You can find the G, the D chords, you could play them. You could play them G, D here, or G, D here, or G, D here, or wherever you like. The more of these chord shapes you know, the faster you get at this. And we cover a lot of this kind of stuff here on the channel. So if you don't want to miss out on any of this stuff, hit that subscribe button. So far, we've got to know how to put together a chord progression or just steal one from a song you like. That also works well. Then we've got to have that chord progression in our mind, think in advance where that chord is going to be to target it, and imagine the pentatonic shape to connect those chords. And that's great, but let's do step 4. Create a bridge by changing the chord order if all is going well. A bridge is just a different section of the song where the chords change. You might add a chord from the key, or you might just play the same chords in a different order. It prevents your song from becoming too repetitive. In this case, I'm just going to go to the 4 chord and hold on to it for a whole measure. That gives me more time to explore a riff, a longer riff that I could play there. So I'm going to play G for a measure, and then D for a measure. But I'm not just gonna play the chords, I'm gonna play some riffs to connect them, right? Again, I gotta know what's a pentatonic scale that suits these chords that I can use to connect the 2 chords. All I'm I'm using there is what I once called the incredible chord connector. I think that's what it was in another YouTube video. And it's essentially just using the major pentatonic scale for that chord. So whenever we have this standard bar chord shape with its root on the low string, just jump up 2 frets and play these 6 notes. It's so easy. In this case, it's just 5-7, 5-7, 5-7. And then just improvise a lick on those 6 notes. It's such an easy shape there. And then we have to think ahead, what is the chord we want? D. I'm gonna play D for a full measure, and I'm just gonna use these same notes. Those lower ones there, that's actually D major pentatonic, we could say. So I got G, D, blue note. Now, let's go to a 5 chord to change it up. Again, this is a bridge, we want it different. The 5 chord is always the chord that gives us tension and makes it feel like we want to go back around to the beginning again. What's the 5 chord in the key of D? Well, it's A, it's right there. Why? Because D, E, F sharp, G, A. There's the 5 chord. And what did I do there? I did the same thing. I just used the incredible chord connector, which is just the major pentatonic, for that A chord. Remember that, again, whenever we have this bar chord shape, just bump up 2 frets, and there you have that super easy triple stack shape, as I sometimes call it. And that's just, in this case for A, it's 7-9, 7-9, 7-9. So if we put that all together, for our bridge, we've got G here. I'll bump up to that little major pentatonic shape. D, and I'm gonna walk back down. G, bump up. A, and bump up for the major pentatonic of A. That's pretty nice. Let's put it all together. Remember that all of this takes time and repetition. Going over it again and again, you can unlock these chord scale connectors. You can review that concept now with this video right here.